Okay, so we will be doing some cash budget today. The following are the results expected by XYZ Limited by quarters of next year. So they have 4 quarters. Instead of doing monthly budget, now we will be doing quarterly budget. So it is given in 4 quarters. The sales amount and then the payments are production cost, selling and administrative, and purchase of plant. The debtors at the end of the quarter are 1/3 of the sales for the quarter. Opening balance of debt is 3,000. Cash on hand at the beginning is given and the desired minimum balance. So let's start solving it. First, we'll prepare a cash budget for 4 quarters. So here, if you could see, I have already prepared it. There are 4 quarters, and for each quarter, we'll have to fill in the details. Then you have cash receipts and cash payments. So let's see the first point that they have spoken about. The debtors at the end of each quarter are 1/3 of sales for the quarter. That basically means out of the total sales, 1/3 of the sales will be paid in the next quarter. Okay, so that means 2/3 will be paid in this quarter only. Again, I'm repeating, the debtors at the end of each quarter are 1/3 of the sales for the quarter. Debtors means the customers who are still not paid. So at the end of each quarter, 1/3 of the customers are there who are still not paid. Okay, so 1/3 are collection from debtors, which will be paid in the next quarter if they have not paid in this quarter, and 2/3 is the cash sales. So that's what the logic we have to apply. I hope it's clear. I'm repeating it again. Debtors are the customers who have not paid money. They have to pay later, and the debtors are 1/3. So of the entire quarter sales, 1/3 are debtors, 2/3 remaining will be cash sales. So we will take cash sales as 2/3 of the total sales and collection from debtors as 1/3. If they don't pay in this quarter, that means they will be paying in the next quarter. Even if it is not mentioned, when they are debtors in this quarter, it is obvious that they will pay in the next quarter. So we will be taking it in the next quarter. So let's see how to solve it. First, we'll write cash sales. Into bracket, you write 2/3 of sales. So 2/3 of sales is cash sales. So for the first quarter, let's see what was the sales amount. 7,500. 2/3 of 7,500 is 5,000. The second quarter, it was 10,000. 2/3 of 10,500. 2/3 of 10,500 is 7,000. For the next quarter, it was 18,000. 2/3 of 18,000 is 12,000. And for the next quarter, it was 10,500, which is 7,000, 2/3. The rest 1/3 is collection from debtors. Into bracket, you write 1/3 in next quarter, because if they have not paid in this quarter, it is obvious that they will pay it in next quarter when nothing is mentioned. So we have to take it in next quarter. Okay, so this is how it would work. So now, whatever were the January sales, that is 7,500, 2/3 of that will be paid in February. First quarter sales 7,500, 2/3 of that will be paid in second quarter. So 7,500 in the second quarter of January sales. First quarter sales. Then second quarter sales were 10,500. 2/3 of that will be paid in the third quarter. So 2/3 of 10,500 is 3,500. And for the fourth quarter, for the third quarter, 18,000 were the sales. That 18,000, 2/3 is 6,000, which will be paid in the fourth quarter. And fourth quarter sales will be paid in the next year, first quarter. We are not preparing it for next year, so we're not recording it here. Now for first quarter, we need to know the previous quarter sales. So if you see here, they've given it clearly. The opening balance of debtors is 3,000. That means this has come from the previous year, last quarter, and that is to be taken forward in this year. So this opening balance is to be taken here, 3,000. This has come from the previous year. So if you consider this as Jan, Feb, March, April, this is December, which was paid in Jan. Or last year, fourth quarter is paid in first quarter of this year. So this was about the debtors and the cash sales that was given. The next they have told about cash in hand at the beginning and the minimum balance and all those. So we'll see that later. First we'll complete the table. Now in the table we have to still pay the production cost, the selling and administrative cost, and the plant and machinery. So let's take production cost and the payments. They have not told that it will be delayed in payment or anything. So that means it's going to be paid in each quarter without any delay. The next cost is selling, administrative, and other costs. So under payments, again below production cost, you take selling, administrative, and other cost, and the payments will be made accordingly. And the last one is purchase of plant and fixed assets. And these are the payments made for it. So we take it as it is. So this is how the expenses will look like. Okay, now let's see what next we can do. So the question, we finished the entire table until here. After this, it is about opening balance, closing balance. So we will first find the total of A and the total of B so that we can find the surplus or deficit. We need to add the cash sales and the collection from debtors to get the total of A. Similarly, you write total of B, add all the expenses. Now we'll write the surplus or deficit. Which is nothing but the total of A minus the total of B. So there is a deficit of 100. 14,500 minus 13,100. You have a surplus of 1,400. 15,500 minus 13,000. You have a surplus of 2,500. 13,000 minus 12,200. You have a surplus of 800. To this we do add opening balance. Now let's see what all they've told. The opening balance is 650. So 650 for the first quarter. Okay, minimum balance is 500. Borrowings are to be made at the beginning of each quarter in which the need will occur in multiples of 10 and are repaid at the end of the quarters. Interest charges may be ignored. Construct a cash budget. So we need to borrow and we need to repay. So whatever balance we get, we'll call it as indicating closing balance. Now, if the closing balance is less than what we require, that is, if it is less than the minimum balance that we require, we will borrow. So, when we borrow, money comes in. So, we do add borrowings. And whenever we have excess, we will do repayment. When you repay, you do less repayment because the money goes out when you repay. And then what you will get is the closing balance. Now, just see here, I have not taken interest on borrowings anywhere because it's clear mention here that you need to ignore. Interest charges may be ignored and they're not even given the percentage of interest. So that's the reason it is not being taken here. So let's see what is the indicating closing balance. To the surplus or deficit, you add the opening balance. So you get the closing balance 550. And see here what they have said. The minimum balance should be 500. So we have more than the minimum balance amount. We have 550. So there is no need to borrow. And when we have not borrowed, there won't be any repayment. So the closing balance will be 550. This closing balance will become opening for the next quarter. Sorry, here we have made a mistake. This is 2,500, not 7,500. So you have a deficit of 3,600 in the second quarter also. So now if I do equal to sum, from the deficit, I'm removing the closing balance. Now, if you observe here, we have a closing balance of minus 3050. Okay, so we already have a deficit of 3050 and we need 500 to keep as minimum balance. That means the total money that we need is 3550. So we need to borrow 3550 rupees. 3050 is the deficit. If you could see here, this is negative. That means this much money you have to still pay, and 500 is the minimum balance that you want to keep. So 3350 plus 500, 3550 is what you need to borrow. So what we will do is we will borrow 3550 here, and as soon as you borrow, you don't make any repayment. Repayment starts from the next month. So your closing balance will be 550. Why? Sorry, it would be 500. Okay, how did I get the closing balance? It's nothing but just show you equal to whatever is your indicating closing balance plus your borrowings and minus your repayments, you will get the closing balance. That becomes the opening for the next quarter, 500. So now we'll find again whether there is surplus or deficit and add opening balance to it. So in the next quarter, we have 3000 rupees and we need a minimum balance of 500. So it is much above that. We need not borrow anything, but we can repay now. How much we can repay? We need only 500 as minimum balance and we have 3000. So from 3000, if I have to keep 500, so 3000 minus 500, I have to repay 2500 rupees. There is no interest, so we are ignoring the interest. Whatever extra we have more than 500, we are repaying the loan of this 3550 loan which we have taken. Okay, so then 500 becomes another balance, opening balance for the next quarter, and then you again find the indicating closing balance. It is 1300, which is much higher than required 500. So you will keep it as 0 as borrowing, and you need 500 here. You have 1300, you need 500. So remaining 800 we can repay. While repaying, you need to also check whether your loan amount is there that much or no. It is there. See here, 2500 plus 800. We have borrowed 3550. So when you borrow 3550, 2500 plus 800 is 3300. So I have repaid these two loan amounts. Okay, so now if you see, every year we have a minimum balance of 500 as expected. Now I told you to borrow 3550 because they have told you can borrow in multiples of 10. In multiples of 10 means you can borrow 10 rupee, 20 rupee, 30, 40, 50 as you want. So 3550 was a multiple of 10. That means if you do 3550 divided by 10, it will get divisible. It will become 355. Okay, so it will not come in decimals. It is divisible by 10. Okay, if they would have said borrow in multiples of hundreds, then I wouldn't have borrowed 3550. I would have borrowed 3600 because they want it in hundreds. Okay, if they would have told borrow in multiples of thousands, then I would have borrowed 4000 because they don't want hundreds. But here they've told to borrow in multiples of tens. So that means 10, 20, 30, 40, you can borrow like that. You cannot borrow 3555. You will have to borrow 3560 because it should be multiple of 10. That means it should get divided by 10 easily. So this is the cash budget for each of the quarters for the next 4 quarters. The problem was easy. Only thing is here was the twist, the indicating, closing, borrowing and all. If you don't do this correctly, you would have lose marks. Okay, so thank you.